Hello and welcome to this video lecture presentation on what is a function. We'll talk about the vertical line test, which will help visually identify if we have a function or not. We'll look at dependent and independent variables and piecewise functions. So let's start off looking at the definition of a function. It's a relationship between two variables such that for every value of the first, there's only one corresponding value of the second. We could determine if an expression that we could graph is a function using something called the vertical line test. It's very simple. If we look right here at our line, and if I was to draw a random vertical line, that random vertical line should touch no more than 1 point. So you see I drew two random vertical lines and they only hit 1 point on my graph. Now same thing is here. Notice I draw a random vertical line, I'm only hitting a single point. So this is a function, this is a function, but let's see if this one is. If I was to draw a random vertical line, notice that this hits the same, this vertical line hits my graph in two different spots. So this is not a function. So for one x, we can't have two different y values. For one x, we can't have two different y values. However, for one y value, we could have two different x values. That is okay, having one y value corresponding to two x values, but it can't be the other way around. One x value can't correspond to two y values. And that is a visual representation of defining a function. Now let's look at dependent and independent variables. Basically, it's the relationship between two variables. The first one, it doesn't matter what you put into it because it's not dependent on another variable. For instance, this t here is an independent variable because it doesn't depend on something else to generate its value. This d, however, does. This is a dependent variable because it depends on the value of t to establish its value, whatever that is. So that is dependent versus independent variables. Now let's look at our last part here, which is piecewise functions. So piecewise functions are conditional. Notice that when our x is less than 1, we have to use this function right here. And then when x is greater than or equal to 1, we have to use this function. So let's take a look. So I have f of minus 2. F of minus 2 is less than 1, so I use the top function only. Minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. Now let's look when x is minus 1. Minus 1 is less than 1, so we plug that in for x. Minus 1 plus 1 is 0. Let's look at 0. 0 is less than 1, so we plug in 0 into this top function here. 0 plus 1 will give me 1. Now let's look over here, plugging in 1. Notice 1 is equal to 1, so we have to switch to the second function here, the square root of x plus 3. So we plug in 1 in for x. 1 plus 3 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Now let's plug in 6. 6 is greater than 1, so we have to use the second function here. 6 plus 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. And let's look at the last one, 13. 13 is greater than 1, so we have to use the second function. 13 plus 3 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. And that will conclude our discussion on defining what a function is, dependent versus independent variables, the vertical line test, and piecewise functions. Thank you for watching and listening. I hope this was easy to understand and follow. And have a good night. Bye-bye.